Order this budget work session of the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors. We'll start with an invocation by myself, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Miller. Please stand if you're able. All right, we'll start with public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to make comment? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, is there anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we will close public comment. That'll move us into the fiscal 2023-2024 water and sewer expenditures. I guess Ms. Hahn, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Let me just, I guess, do an intro. So couple things. Obviously, this is going to be a different budget given you have now a contract line item that will be there for Imboden services for water and wastewater operations. So there'll be, some major changes in that respect. We obviously have some assumptions, I think, built in that there would be a 5% increase for employees, which basically follows what the county employees are getting if that budget is ultimately approved, which I think will be at next Tuesday, I guess, or at least a public hearing. Then obviously Ms. Hahn had to build in projected revenues that will be based on kind of the reality that you have a wastewater operator. And I think going back to the conversations when we were considering that contract, I think the revenues are adjusted to reflect an increase. She'll tell you, I guess, that I'm not going to pray. I don't think it's any different than what you were presented with. But the other aspect of this is that it takes 2 readings for your rate increases, for whatever rate increases you may adopt. It takes 2 increases or 2 rate public hearings, or at least one. Yes, it needs to be done twice. So what we're contemplating is that obviously you're getting this for the first time. We would want, obviously, perhaps a public hearing on the 20th, and then you might have to have another meeting that next week to adopt everything. Is that kind of the schedule that you were built based on?
I don't think that the service authority has to wait the week to approve like the county does. But it's not 2 readings, but 2 publications. It has to be publicized twice for the public in the newspaper, on our sources here, the website, that kind of thing. So depending on when we move forward with that, will depend on the timing of when we can have the public hearing, or if we need to have a special meeting for a public hearing.
Okay. And then I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay. So I want to say that I enlisted the help of Mr. Eisenbeis from maintenance, as well as Ms. Norris Parker, gathered some data for me and sent over. And I tried to build this to the best of my ability. In front of you, you'll start with the expenditures. And the top sheet is a summary that includes both water and wastewater. And then there's a sheet for the water and for the wastewater departments. So I didn't know if you all wanted to go down line by line as we have in the past. If you had any questions, if you want to, how would you like for me to proceed with that?
Do you have any opinion?
Can I make a suggestion? If there are significant deltas in the difference column, perhaps we could address those. I don't know that we need to go line by line because all of us are pretty well versed in this from prior budgets, but I would like to be able to ask questions about the ones that have significant deltas.
So if you notice in both water and sewer, wastewater, that you've got significant deltas in payroll, which is for the employees who were either absorbed or left the county. And that the employees who were left, the admin in the office, the maintenance department, along with a couple of vacancies over there, is divided 50-50 between the two departments. So you'll notice that both water and sewer have the same amounts there. For whatever reason, we've always paid, if you're not a member of the Board of Supervisors, the pay for the other directors comes out of the water department. So that's a little bit different there, but there's no delta. And then you will see, let's see, go on down to the next thing that has a delta in it, and that is a decrease in engineering architectural services on both the water and sewer side of the house. This was based on information provided to me by Mr. Kusenberry, county engineer. And I think we've still got some funds left in the current year that we're gonna continue with some projects that Mr. Young is working on right now, but he'll get those encumbered before the end of the year. And that's why we could reduce that line item. Muni billing, I realized when I was going through the numbers that I had overestimated a little bit last year, so that did come down this year, even though the price went up, and it's going to continue to go up each year. We are in the process of working on getting the new financial system, and once that is up and running, it's possible that we could bring utility billing back in-house. But get the financials and the human resource side up first before we tackle that. Then, of course, the big delta is your professional services, and that is attributed to your contract with the water and the wastewater within Bowdoin. We did also include in that line item, because they have a parameter in the contract that if the need arises for additional services after hours or additional services that aren't included in the operation, that we could be charged additional funds. So we did add, I added, I believe it was 40,000 to the sewer side and 10,000 to the water side of the house. I skipped over one, the accounting and auditing services. Of course, the audit is under contract and they have rate increases each year. And with the amount of work that Davenport has been doing, trying to help us through some of these processes, they did ask that I include a $10,000 increase in their line item for next year. The sewer testing, all of that is included in the contract that we have. I did leave in $10,000 because there is a provision that if they have to go outside, use outside testing, that there could be some. So far, we haven't had to have any, but I just wanted to have some funds there to cover that in case that were to be the case. Repair and maintenance. Contracted services, you'll see that there is a big delta there. Part of that reason is that the amount that has been budgeted in the past for well pump replacement was very pre-COVID, pre-inflation. And as you all know from the last one that you approved last week, I believe that was like $114,000. So I added quite a bit of money there on the water side of the house. We generally budget, anticipate having to replace 2 a year. Do some work there. And of course, vehicle repair came down because we have less vehicles to maintain now. The electric service, you'll see that that did increase, and that's based on the current fiscal year, what we're paying in at the sewer plant. I do know that in Bowdoin is going to be working with the Rural Water Association to have an energy audit done. That has not taken place yet, so I didn't want to shortchange the budget, not knowing if we can save any money on electric fees. And then so maintenance service contracts. Each year we have a contract with Southern Corrosion for our water tank maintenance, and each year you take the current year and add CPI, and I believe I used like 5.4% CPI to estimate that going up. Also, we got our renewal for the generator preventative maintenance contract, and that went up as well. So you'll see the increase on that line. That's $33.20. So I did skip over that. I went on to electric. I apologize there. I'm trying to look at this and see which ones have the major deltas. If there's anything you have questions at any time, stop me, please. So chemicals is not a delta. The next one is the lease rent of equipment. You'll see a delta there where we went down lower because of the equipment that we let the other departments on throughout the county assume the lease instead of, all the newer pieces of equipment, the trucks, I believe they were Dodge Rams that we had at the facilities. So that came down because we're no longer paying those rental fees. And travel and conference came down a little bit because we don't have as many employees to train. We did show a decrease in fuel because of the fewer vehicles. And you'll notice there's a 20,000 delta on vehicle and powered equipment supplies. And Mr. Eisenbeis is requesting to purchase 2 snow plows. That our plows are not in the best of shape, and so they would like to replace those plows. He's got an estimate of $10,000 each on that, so that they can clear the snow from the facility.
Yeah, the only question is that what the heck are those things getting hooked to that they're $10,000 a piece? I said, what the heck are they getting hooked to that they're $10,000 a piece for snowplows? Because I mean, I could put a snowplow on my F-150 for a couple grand.
I think they're putting them on like the 2,500 and the 3,500.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because $10,000 seems like a lot of money for a snowplow. But we're talking about like a general driveway snowplow is what you need, not.
So we'll get some more information on that.
That's a question I would have because that just seems like a lot of money for snowplows.
Actually, that's not
that
unreasonable, especially for the install.
Yeah, because the vehicles, if they're not equipped for a
I was assuming we were just replacing ones that already had the setup for it.
I know that probably one of the vehicles that used to be used for plowing snow is one of the older vehicles that we no longer
Okay, so this is like the whole setup, not just
Yeah.
you're swapping a plow? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole,
Yeah, I
No,
thought what we were talking about was we had just old beat up ones that were already on the truck and we were just buying the new one to slap on the setup. But yeah, if they need the whole setup, it might be. All right.
And then in the past, we've had the other, well, the metering supplies that has dropped drastically because of the AMI project. So he didn't want to totally leave money out of that line. You never know when you're going to run across something might happen and we might need to replace something, but you'll see it. That was a big cut there. And then the other was the capital outlay machinery and equipment. If you all remember back several years back that Mr. Weekly always put money in the operating budget for capital, and we're trying to move forward to having the separate capital project. So there was money that was left in, and I actually believe that this is one of the ones that we are using the BDH water grant for. I believe it was Arnold's Corner was still in there. And then, of course, our debt payment has increased. And I think that Mr. Laux with Davenport had indicated that the debt payment's going to continue to increase each year until we either refund or something. So are there any questions that you have on any of those items? Anything you'd like to go over further?
Just the delta, I guess, between the preliminary budget, between last year's budget and the proposed budget this year's 738,000, something like that.
Yeah. So yes, with some of the stuff going out and some things coming down, yes, that is correct. That last column.
Are there any questions? All right, no questions.
Okay, and then in front of you, you have two different revenue scenarios. One is the 3% that was included in the 5-year rate plan. And as you can see down at the very bottom on that sheet, there is a red, I think it's right there, Ms. Kupka, beside you. You'll see the top one, there is a number in the red based on what the revenues would be at a 3% increase. It is not enough to cover the new budgeted expenditures. And the bottom sheet is, if you remember when Mr. Laux came prior to approval of the operations contract, he had mentioned that we would need to see a 10% rate increase. The bottom sheet is your 10% rate increase. And if you see at the bottom, now your revenue and then your expenditures match.
Now, I know this may not be under your purview, it might be under Davenport's. I know when we were talking to him, we were talking about the 10% rate increase on the operating stuff, but maybe not on the debt service. Is the 10% on the debt service in there as well?
Yes, I believe.
It would just be across the board. 10% is how.
Let me. Yes, because generally when we do the rate increase, it is across the board and.
Yeah, it is general across the board. I just didn't know if we had accounted for it separately as if the operations were accounted with a 10% increase on the rates, but if this calculation also included 10% on the debt service fee, or if that's a separate item to discuss.
If we need to take on any new debt, if there's new projects that are outside of those grants, then yes, that would be a separate conversation. As you can see here, if you look up at the top lines, like the third and fourth line on your spreadsheet are debt fees. And in the past, it's always been figured into, I'm just using what had been previously done by others. So of course, those increases there don't totally, the increase on the debt fees is more than the increase in the debt payment. Where the debt payment is figured into the operating budget. And if you look at the budget summary, there is a reserve for the fund balance. I left that the same as last year. That's something, if you don't want the rate increase to be on those debt fees, you could always lower your reserve for your fund balance.
Yeah, that's what I think that's one thing I wanted Davenport, I think, to go over was the consideration of that. Because he said that might be possible, but we just got to make sure that's something they need to answer because it's planning out into the future. So my statement would be if we can not raise the debt fees, that would be a little bit of a break for the ratepayers, obviously, because debt fees are fairly big. But we also still got to be fiscally responsible. So that I would need Davenport to kind of say what we need in reserve to meet, because I know we have to have a certain amount for different loans, and so I would like to not, if we could not increase the debt service fees, that'd be, obviously we need to increase the fees on the water and sewer, just the regular stuff. But if we can keep that lower, maybe not, it might not be zero, it might still have to go up some, but if we can keep that increase on the lower end, it would be a little bit of overall relief because those debt service fees are pretty big. But that I need Davenport to tell me that we're not going to get in trouble for reserves.
Well, and the operating budget is a fairly straightforward and pretty simplistic. It's the capital that's going to be the thing that's, Mr. Young and myself and Mr. Cusenberry and Ms. Hahn are working with Davenport because it's going to retool everything. I mean, you're talking significant dollars. Now, you do have some resources through the grants, and those projects are going to be taken care of that way. But anything new, that's going to be something that I think we get Mr. Laux to come back in the fall or whenever we're ready to possibly redo some of the rates and the rate structure, and you look at doing something now with the debt and pull the debt down or refinance it in some way that you get some other money up front. But at that point, I think there's going to be some realistic need to look at how these capital projects are being funded. But I know that it's pretty aggressive. And we know we have to do that, I think, to bring this service authority up to where it needs to be.
It's a question for them. I mean, if we can keep or lower the capital reserve fee, great. If we can't, Davenport says no, you're going to screw yourself. But it's a question, I think, because they're the ones doing the modeling and whatnot and know the kind of their multipliers.
So the actual capital reserve fee is separate than the fund balance.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm suggesting. And of course, like you said, we need to ask him because I'm not sure. I wasn't here when the rate plan was put into effect, and it was decided at that time, I believe, that we needed to set aside so much for fund balance each year in order to maintain marketable and to get the best rates when we do take out debt.
Yeah, and I know that fund balance has gone up quite significantly because we brought in extra money in some of the years, and that's where where it's been dumped. I'm just saying, let's ask Mr. Davenport to double check it and see where we are according to plan. And he might say, well, now you've tripled what you need. You need to keep going. I just don't know. I don't know what all that needs to be to make sure we stay square with our loans.
Because if I remember correctly, and I'm going to look at that I think we did lower the amount of fund, that we reserved for fund balance last year. In order to balance the budget and stay at the 4% rate increase. So we did, but not that much. It was 31,000 that we lowered that amount.
It may not make a significant difference, but it's a question just to ask Davenport.
And then again, be cognizant of our debt payment has gone up 81,000.
Yeah.
Which it'll go up again probably the next year. And also in 2025, we're tapping into that $15 million line of credit, and that has to be repaid in 2025. And that is debt, so
yeah, that
may be a reason to keep it consistent across all of them.
Yeah, I'm just interested. It may have to stay where it is.
But I can reach out to Mr. Laux and ask his opinion on that. I don't know that it's something that you need him to come and meet with you all.
No, just you can relay his opinion.
Yeah, I think he's scheduled to come next Thursday for the Board of Supervisors. And talk with them about some of their long-term financial needs related to some of the capital projects. So we definitely could get him. I wonder if there's even a way to do the meeting that same night. Anyway, guess we'll talk about that in a second. So I guess the biggest thing it would be future meetings, but then I don't know if you're comfortable or if we need to wait until Tuesday night to set a public hearing. I don't know that they can do that tonight, can they?
Mr. Chair, I actually have some questions about the line by lines back on the operating budget request for both water and sewer. Because let's be honest, we haven't made any cuts yet. No one has said that. And these might not amount to much, but there are some things I have questions about that costs did increase. And so I just want to make sure we're being realistic about things. So on water department, line 3600 advertising, $3,000.
Some of that might be associated with the reports that they have to give.
And then it's also $2,000 in the sewer department. So do we really spend $5,000 a year total across the two departments?
you know, when Mr. Eisenbeiss and I were meeting, he was like, well, he didn't want to, you know, touch anything, so we didn't. I can pull up and see what we charged, what we
Some of that
paid
is
last year.
the reports that you're supposed to, you know, because you're a public system, you're supposed to provide a report on what's in your water. So that might be some of that. That's what that might have been something that they kept a little placeholder for to cover that.
But do we do that?
You have to provide.
I know,
that.
but are we doing that? Like, where would I find that?
Probably on their site. I would think that it goes on their site. It
On,
also is sent, it should be sent to all their customers. Do you
Well-
receive one as a customer?
so is it a postcard or is it a
It's a letter.
published, it's a letter?
It's a letter and it gives you all the,
What's in the water?
all the technical stuff of what's in the water. I think it's 2 pages, 3 pages
Right.
long.
So then what's the difference between that and postal services as well?
We
Like,
can
I
check
just,
on that.
yeah,
Right.
and I don't expect an answer tonight. I know I'm putting everyone on the spot. But if there are things that maybe we're overestimating here because there's an adjustment column and we haven't done anything with that at all. So I just want to give some things that we could think about. That, like I said, the advertising is $5,000 between the two departments. What were the other ones?
Well,
Cell phone.
Some of the advertising is stuff that we have to legally, like put in the newspaper and stuff.
Right, and I
know
understand
know
when we
the
have to
FLS has
advertise for a
raised their
public hearing.
rates.
Sure, I understand that.
Yeah.
I would like to know how much we actually spend before we
Yeah.
commit
We'll get to
to,
that.
to
So-
increasing any of these categories.
That's right.
If
Well-
Is it
Yeah.
really necessary or not? Because
And how much do we spend on
This-
architectural engineering services every year? Do we spend $150,000?
So that number is linked to people like RK&K that are doing.
Yeah,
some
but,
work for
I mean,
you.
we've got some history with-
Also Haggerty with, TRC is probably the one that generates the most of it because they're the ones that are.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is we probably have a history and we can sort of guess as to what that, as opposed to just putting a placeholder, we can probably,
Well, I know that what Ms. Hahn indicated is that Mr. Cusenberry and her talked that over.
Mhm.
And he had recommended coming down to the 150, but we can check it out.
anywhere we can snip a little bit, if we can go up 9% or 8%.
yeah, 10% is,
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
So anywhere we can tighten the budget would be,
I think you
If we
might have
can.
an answer on the
So,
advertising.
well, I have some more questions. So
Oh,
maybe,
okay.
maybe if I go through all my questions and then perhaps you all can take as much time as you need and send us an email with the answers. So all 5 of us have all the same information in one place. That would be wonderful. Cell phone pagers, 5240. So if we have fewer employees, why is that number going up?
Because of the AMI project, we had to add numerous cell phone plans. The AMI meters talk through a phone line into the program. And so while we cut out some of the cell phones, a lot of your wastewater folks did not have cell phones. Your maintenance folks did, and with having a couple of vacancies that will be filled, their maintenance, they'll have cell phones and then all the additional phones for the AMI project.
Okay, thank you. Medical supplies, an increase of $2,800. It went from $1,200 to $4,000. It's an increase of $2,800.
And that is based on the actual that we've been using. So medical supplies are like the gloves and,
I get that. I know what medical supplies were. I was a first responder.
but I mean, you know, for the general public, they might say medical supplies
Sure.
in for anybody who might be tuned in. But so that's based on the actual of the current fiscal year.
I sort of have a question that goes with Ms. Kupka's question. So you have telecommunications and cell phone pagers. You have two lines.
Yes.
Why are they both gone up? Because one,
Telecommunications is, you still have landlines over, you also have Intuity Cloud, which Mr. Dines could explain more about that, but that's our voice over IP that they have at the main office, but the plants still have phone lines, and that's considered a utility, and that remains with the county, as well as Breeze Line falls under that. And Breeze Line is for our internet at the main office, and I think Fairview Beach also has a Breeze Line bill. So that's why you have two different lines. You
so it went up
differentiate
like
the cell phone.
$6,000.
The Intuity on each side of the house is $187 a month. The Breeze Line is about $120, $125 a month. So when you do those all by monthly, and then there are numerous landlines at the plants and alarm lines as well.
So then uniforms and wearing apparel. So I note, so on the water side, and we kept water employees.
No.
No, so why?
They're all maintenance.
So they're all maintenance. So is this gonna go to maintenance?
So
Will these be maintenance employees that this, because it's $1,000 increase on the water budget, but on the sewer budget, it's a $1,950 decrease? If I read that right, it's 6011.
I'm showing, so this was based on, discussion with, if you notice that was lowered, and so it was split 50-50 between the two. Mr. Eisenbeis asked that I raise the amount for their steel-toed shoes on both sides.
It's a $950.
It's a 1950 decrease overall for the sewer, because the sewer had more employees. And that's why you have a bigger cut. Because maintenance was always 50-50, but you had twice or more than twice the number of sewer employees than you did water employees. But now, if you notice that both of them are equal, the split at 50-50.
And then one other question on the sewer line by line, the 6050, the non-capital technology hardware / software.
So this is a, Mr. Eisenbeis got a new laptop, and he talked to you all about that last year during budget season, and he got that in this year. But in order to communicate with the plants, he needs a program. And he, so it was split 6,000 to sewer, 2,000 to water, because there's more communications that need to take place between his laptop and the sewer plants versus the water plants. And it's a programming.
Okay, thank you.
And I mean, looking back, we can cut I would think the advertising, because that's mostly spent on the public hearings, advertisement, the rate. However, if we are going to come back next year at some point and do something possibly for for capital projects, we might want to leave that in there. As we're spending right now, last year we spent about $3,000 between the two.
So it could come down.
Unless we're going to come back and advertise again if we need to do something for capital. That's awesome. And so engineering services, that was based on what Mr. Kusenberry felt like the need was going to be going forward. I know that we've had some projects going on that have been charged against the grants right now, so that's lowered the current year cost, but I believe Mr. Young has mentioned that there are some things on the horizon that are not included in capital. And I know that like one of the projects that's going on, and you might correct me, but it's something about the groundwater amount of water that we can,
I.
not the INI, it's the groundwater withdrawal.
Yeah,
They're doing a study on that right now. So those are some of the things that are coming down the pipes on engineering. But Mr. Kusenberry did feel like we could cut, and we cut on both sides of the house there in the engineering. And I believe on the sewer side, we did have I&I in the current year budget, which we didn't do, and we included I&I into the DEQ 16 million grant. So I think I answered most of your questions.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So I know that we could discuss a public hearing, but just because we could doesn't mean that we should right now. And I think it would be premature given that while we have a quorum here, we have 2 members absent, that I would like them to have the opportunity to weigh in as well.
I don't disagree, and I think I'd like to also look and get some of those answers before we do anything from Davenport and whatnot. Make sure we've got and give everybody time to just go through the budget and digest it, just to see if there's anything we can think of where we can tighten up anything. I don't know if there is, but at least everybody will have the opportunity to take a look and possibly tighten some stuff up. So I guess then we need probably to set another meeting. I mean, next Wednesday or Thursday night work for it.
So the Board of Supervisors has their budget work session on the CIP at 6. That doesn't mean that you couldn't meet before.
On Wednesday?
On Thursday, excuse me.
Thursday. Wow.
Wednesday, the school board will be here at 5:30.
Okay.
But we could meet at an alternate.
There's the sheriff's office and there's.
And the fire, I think we've met the
Right.
fire station a lot for these budget things. So kind of what's the consensus of those that are here?
Doesn't matter to me, so.
Okay. So let's set it up. Let's set it up for Wednesday, maybe at the fire station. If we can get that, like, I guess get Jackie to kind of nail that down for everybody, but
At 5:30?
yeah, try not to keep you too late.
Especially you have meetings on either side.
Okay. do we need to,
I'll email Karen.
do we need to also reserve a time after the 20th? We'll check on that, but
So you have to advertise for a public hearing. You will not be able to have a public hearing on the 20th. So we'll have to advertise,
How long does the advertisement have to be?
that you advertise twice, 1 week apart, I believe.
Okay, so we'd have to make a decision and then get it advertised like next Thursday, wait a week. Next, and
next
then
Wednesday, next Wednesday, then
yeah.
wait, yeah.
So then we might have to have a special session right at the end.
Yes, you probably would be looking at that last week of the month to hold a public hearing. And then I believe, and I can double check on that too with our attorneys to make sure, but I do believe that the Service Authority is not held to the waiting a week after the public hearing. That's setting on the rates, which the rates for the county don't have to wait a week either. Like tax rates, they can be set at the public hearing, but the budget for the county cannot be adopted until 1 week later.
Okay.
But I can double check on that. And generally, I think that Ms. Fish needs a couple of days after before to get it in. So it would probably be in like the 11th and the 18th, and then you could have a public hearing that next week.
Okay. I think that sounds like at least a tentative plan. Is there anything else? Any comments, concerns, questions? Final closing comments? All right, I guess I'll take a motion.
I'll move to adjourn to June 6, 2023 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. We adjourn to June 6, 2023, 5:30 PM here in the boardroom.